Welcome to Behind the Muscle podcast. Today's guest is an IFBB pro and four-time Olympian. Today's guest is Jeremy Potvin. Jeremy, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Very excited to go through this interview and just share a little bit more about myself and my story. So,
for sure, I'm excited to chop it up with you, Jeremy. I like to start each podcast off with the same two questions. So the first question I have for you is, who are a few of your favorite bodybuilders of all time?
All right. So I love Brance Warren for his work ethic and his training style. Very much enjoyed Jay Cutler. He was just an amazing ambassador of the sport. I have Lionel Biecki and Flex Wheeler as my symmetry guys and just their overall look. And then Ruli Winkler for his kind of freak factor.
Love it, man. So the second question that I have for you, Jeremy, at what age did you start lifting weights? And then why did you start lifting weights at that age?
So I started at 20, and that was when I was deployed to Iraq. I started lifting as a way to kind of relieve stress. And in doing so, I realized that I was making progress and growing a little bit. So it just kind of became an addiction at that point.
Very cool, my man. So I like to use that question, Jeremy, just to transition into my guest's upbringing, dig a little bit deeper into the backstory. So if you don't mind sharing with myself and the listeners, where did you grow up? What were some of those interests for you when you were younger? Talk about family dynamics a little bit, if you don't mind, up to about high school, and then we'll move on from there.
Yeah. So I kind of grew up everywhere. My dad was military. I myself was military. I have two sisters, one brother. I wouldn't necessarily call one place home. Like I said, grew up in various places. As a kid, I enjoyed playing soccer, played a little bit of football, not too much though in school settings. I was way too small for that. I love skateboarding. That was probably one of my biggest hobbies. What I spent a lot of time doing. So yeah, that kind of covers it. My parents were very, in my opinion, my parents were great. They did a great job raising myself and my siblings. They taught us discipline. They taught us to work hard. They prepared us for what lies ahead. So very grateful for that.
Was academic something that was stressed pretty strongly within your home? And if so, was academic something that you enjoyed or not so much?
Never enjoyed it. Was never the best. I was just an average student. Took a couple AP classes and pre-AP classes and stuff like that, but never really excelled or cared to push myself in that avenue. My parents always expected to do well, but it was never strongly pushed, as you could say.
So on one of you kind of mentioned skateboarding in passing. On one of your IG posts, I saw that at some point skateboarding when you were younger was a passion of yours, and then it kind of transitioned into the fitness side of things. But how did you kind of get into skateboarding, and what was it that you enjoyed so much about that sport?
I started skating towards the end of like 8th grade. I don't know how. I think I just picked up a board one day and started, and kind of got intrigued with the learning progression. It was never ending progression. You're always working to get better at it. You're always practicing. And I think, for example, you take an ollie, you progress from ollieing in the grass to ollieing in a crack in the concrete to ollieing while rolling. And it just kind of, continuously progresses, and you do that with every single trick. So it's kind of like a never ending state of learning. And I loved it. It was just fun to do, skate around town, go find new spots, and just do that with your friends. I used to skip school all the time to go skate. Sometimes I could sneak out at night to go party, and sometimes I'd sneak out at night to go skate. It was just skating was my shit. That's what I really.
Now, talking about partying a little bit, sneaking out of the house, stuff like that, my younger brother was really big into skating and stuff. And I know just from the outside looking in, there is a little bit of that rebelliousness with skaters and kind of that subculture, right?
Mhm.
Kind of actually very similar to bodybuilding. Bodybuilding is a subculture. It's got a lot of kind of rebellious people, so to speak. Was that rebellious side of things kind of something that you think you enjoyed, or kind of pulled you into the skating scene, or not so much?
Uh, I, I don't know. I wouldn't say I was like a horrible kid or anything, or like too rebellious, but I did enjoy it enough to where, like I said, I would go out of my way to go do those things. Like I said, sneaking out of the house. Um, but yeah, it was just something that I enjoyed occupying my time with. Just like you said, just like bodybuilding is something I enjoy occupying my time with, and just constantly learning more. I guess that's the drawing of it, is it's never ending progression. So it didn't stop until I got to that point, until I left for the military, and that was the only thing that kind of like pushed me away from skating. Is, you're in the military now. There wasn't too much time to be doing that stuff. So
Makes sense. Now, obviously you said you grew up in a military family, and we know that you were in the military. I want to get into that in a minute, but when you were growing up, when you were kind of, thinking about what you wanted to be when you grew up, thinking about, post high school, was military kind of the only focus for you? Or did you want to be like a pro skater? Did you want to go to college and become a business person? What were you thinking about as you were getting ready to finish up high school, or even when you were younger?
uh, I think military had stuck with me for a while. When I was a junior in high school, I kind of knew that was the route I wanted to take. I've always had that desire to kind of give back or serve my country. Um, so obviously, as a little kid, you want to be like a lawyer or astronaut or something along those lines. Um, I remember making bets with my little sister, talking about whoever the first one in a magazine, we'd win that bet, stuff like that. Just those little childhood dreams. And obviously, there was a point in time where I wanted to be a pro skater, but realistically speaking, I think going into the military was always something I wanted to pursue. I always admired those that did. I always enjoyed military movies. I think, my grandfather was military. Again, my father was military. My brother, he did his time. And yeah, it was just kind of instilled in me, I guess you could say.
Perfect, man. Kind of makes things sometimes easier when you have just kind of that singular focus, or you have something like that instilled within you. Because sometimes when we're younger, we're all over the place. But so it sounds like you signed up for the military. You said your junior year in high school. Did you ship out to boot camp then immediately after you graduated, or did you have a little time in between? What was that like?
Yeah, no, like pretty much, I want to say a month and a half after I graduated, I had my basic training data already set, and was ready to go. So right out of high school is pretty much boots on ground at that point.
And you were in the Army, correct, Jeremy?
Yep, did
Okay.
did army.
So talk about just some of those experiences. Obviously, you already mentioned you deployed to Iraq. So how many times did you deploy? Just talk about that experience overall, and what maybe you enjoyed about actually being in the military.
Yeah, military is one of those experiences that you can never replicate or duplicate. Um, the people you meet, the things you go through, it's just kind of second to none. The friendships and the bonds you build while in the military, you can't ever really get that again. I guess it's because, you serve with people that are there to, they're ready to save your life, and vice versa, or guide you in the right direction, make sure you stay alive. So it was definitely one of those experiences that I hold very, very close to my heart. Um, and it's just it shaped and molded me into kind of what I am today. Especially deployment. There's some things that you go through or you witness that only few will understand. So it's definitely definitely was a grateful experience, but there's a reason why I got out. You know, if I stayed in, I would have done my second tour to Afghanistan. And at that point in time, it was either stay in and go to Afghanistan or get out and kind of see what else was out there. And I made a decision to get out and see what else was out there, and kind of led me to where I am now. So definitely don't regret getting out, but you know, there's parts of me that wish I would have stayed in, or, you know, wanted to join back up. So
Now, so when you got out, did you just fulfill that first initial contract that you signed with the Army, or were you, did you re-up after that first contract?
after that first contract, that was it. That was it. Said I got out and I tried. I was originally, my plan was to become a border patrol agent. However, that hiring process is insanely long. I didn't realize it was going to be as long as it was. You know, I think after about a year and a half into it, I was like, geez, I can't keep waiting for something and doing these little odd jobs while waiting for this process to finish. And I decided to go to school at that point and just kind of pursue that, and, you know, further my education and kind of see what I wanted to do at the end of the day.
So talk about, you said at 20 is when you kind of started getting into lifting weights. You were in the military while you were deployed to Iraq, you mentioned earlier. So talk about just kind of that introduction to strength training. You know, what did you enjoy about it? And let's just start talking about that evolution from, you know, kind of day one, 20 years old, to how the whole fitness experience has unfolded over the years.
Yeah. So I believe it was when I first actually went overseas. We did 2 weeks. Every time you go overseas, you do 2 weeks in Kuwait, at least if you're going to Iraq. We did 2 weeks in Kuwait. And during that time, was fairly new to training. But I did know I was great at push-ups. So I decided to enter in a bench competition there. And I think at the time I was like maybe $140. So wasn't weighing too much, but I was able to bench press. I think I remember I did like 225 and tried like 275 or something like that. And at that point I realized I was pretty strong, and just kind of kept up with it. So I was obsessed with trying to get my bench higher, especially being a lighter guy. So I was like, you know, if I could be $140, $145, bench press 315, you know, that's a couple different records, I believe, in powerlifting at certain states. So I was really pursuing that. But like I said, in doing so, I was noticing these changes within my body, especially being a small, skinny guy, and just kind of fell in love with that, like that continuous progression and seeing my body change. It was a very rewarding journey. You know, by the time I remember when I was leaving Iraq and all these people that were part of my unit that haven't seen me throughout the whole year, you know, they saw me at the end of deployment when we were all getting ready to head back to the States. And they're like, geez, man, like you look like, yeah, like probably the most expensive piss in Iraq. You know, they're saying, obviously referencing taking steroids and things of that sort. But at the time I was natural. I had started taking Celtac, drinking protein shakes, things of that sort, and eating good. I ate real good while I was deployed. So it was just kind of a perfect combination to get started.
Excellent. So you get out of the military, you're kind of waiting to do the border patrol thing, and then you realize that's probably not going to happen. You said you went to college. What was your mindset at that point to go to college? What did you study? Just talk about that a little bit. And then just kind of correlate that with the fitness and where you were at post-military with your training.
Yeah. So at that point, I was working. So I had started an odd job while waiting for the border patrol. I was working at a GNC, and I was a store manager at a GNC, and then I was also personal training at a Gold's Gym. And while I was personal training, another trainer there was competing for her pro card in bikini. And I had no idea about anything other than bodybuilding. So I didn't know that there were other divisions. And at this time, men's physique was a brand new division. I would say this was 2012. So she had told me about men's physique, and she was the one who actually sparked that interest in me. She told me, she was like, there's this new division called men's physique. I think you'd be great at it. Ended up doing one of my first shows there. Probably about 4 months after she had mentioned it. So I didn't really prep or know too much about it, other than that I go on stage, I wear board shorts, and was watching YouTube videos to prepare for it. So did my first show and enjoyed it. Had fun with it. I didn't know if it was something I still wanted to pursue. At that point, I realized that, hey, I still have this GI Bill that I want to take advantage of. Might as well do that. So I started going to school. Didn't know what route I wanted to take. I just kind of wanted to do more. And while going to school, I was still competing. Ended up doing my first national show. And not too long after, did my second national show. But at that point, that's kind of when I realized I wanted to pursue this further and try more. So while going to school, and like I said, I had no general idea of what I wanted to pursue, though. It was just kind of all over the place, taking different things and rolling with it. But like I said, I was pursuing this, and eventually I got to the point where I was doing my third national show, which was NPC Nationals in Miami, and this is 2014. And I had actually went pro at that show, won my class. And I realized that if I kind of wanted to take it further, at least this is my mentality, it's not necessarily true today, especially with social media being as big as it is, that I had to move out to California. Ended up signing up at the National Personal Training Institute to kind of further my education with personal training and things of that sort. Figured, maybe that's something I could pursue out there. And, just ended up kind of meeting the right people, working with the right coaches, and kind of pushed my competing career kind of through the wall. I ended up landing a couple endorsements while I was out there. My social media was growing, and got to a point where I was just able to live off of my endorsements. So
that's like the dream, right, Jeremy? I mean, there's so many people, because of social media now, like they get into fitness specifically for that. But I love it. People like you, it's like you're just living your life and things happen right now, because again, of social media, there's people that are like chasing that. But it's kind of a breath of fresh air that you were just living your life and things came together. Now, talk about when you first competed, right? Because this girl at the gym introduces you kind of to men's physique. You do your first competition. Did you thoroughly enjoy it? Was it a sucky experience? Just talk about that a little bit, that first competition, and then I'll kind of follow up from there.
Yeah, the first competition was pretty much the girl told me about it. I talked to one of the other male trainers there, and he was like, what, like, let me kind of help you with this show, and maybe I'll do it myself too. So we both did our first show together, and he was coaching me. I ended up placing, I want to say I prepped for a couple months. It wasn't anything serious. I ended up placing 4th at my first show. And I remember telling myself too, I was like, this was cool, but I'd like to pursue bodybuilding. That was my initial thought. But then I started thinking about, what it would take to be a successful bodybuilder, how much time it would really take. And at the time I was completely natural. I wasn't willing to do all that stuff. So yeah, that was kind of my first experience with the first show. Was, I didn't think I wanted to continue competing in men's physique. I thought it was a one and done thing, but I had fun with it. I enjoyed it. And after doing that, I figured maybe I'll try one more show, and did my next one. So,
and then it wasn't too long after that you turned pro. Now, I want to ask you, from that first show to when you turned pro at nationals in 2014, what was the influence, or what was kind of that moment when you're like, okay, I'm going to kind of step into this more, and I'm going to pursue this kind of with everything I've got, and I'm going to see where it goes. Was it a coach? Was it somebody else at the gym? Was it just you kind of in your own heart? What was that influence?
So I did my first show, got 4th place. And then I did my second show and actually ended up winning my class Emmy overall. It was the 2013 Jay Cutler Baltimore Classic. And I winning my class. And from there, I was like, well, all right. I still didn't understand what a lot of these terms that were being thrown at me. People were like, oh man, you know, your chest is crazy. You have the craziest taper. And I'm still like, I didn't know what that meant at the time. I was just like, all right, cool. So obviously after getting it overall, you're just like, all right, well, maybe I should try my shot at nationals. I did my first national show, which was Junior USA's, and got third in my class. So for my first national, I thought that was pretty good. Decided to go for the pro card. Again, I still didn't really understand the industry. I didn't understand the IFBB or MPC too much. Still learning it. Just knew at that point, maybe I could go pro and go from there. Did my second national show, got third call outs, did not place. And that was kind of a big turnoff for me because I didn't really understand how I go from being third to not placing at my next national show. So at that point, I thought I was just about done with competing. However, you know, I had a lot of people telling me that like, hey man, like, you know, just give it one more shot. That was including my coach at the time. Just give it one more shot. And then after that, you can just wrap it up if you decide you don't want to do it anymore. That's when I decided to do nationals in Miami, 2014, and ended up winning my class and my pro card. So the rest kind of just, at that point, when I won my pro card, that's when I decided I wanted to put my all into pursuing it further.
So what year was your first year qualifying for the Olympia? And then just talk about being on that Olympia stage and attaining the highest level that you can within the IFBB, being an Olympian.
Yeah, so see, I got my pro card November 2014, and in March of 2015, I decided to, I guess you say, hop on over to the dark side things. No longer want to be natural because I knew if I want to do a pro show and compete with these guys, I would need to take things up to another level. You know, when I got my pro card, I was 143 pounds. So by no means big. I did my first pro show, I want to say the end of June or beginning of July of 2015. And I actually got third at my pro debut. So it was a pretty good pro debut. However, I didn't want to keep trying to get that Olympia qualification at that year. At that point, I realized how I could do as a pro, but I still knew I needed to do a lot more work. So took some time off, ended up working with a new coach, Team Zero Gravity, Ryan Benson. And at that point, I decided I wanted to try to get to the Olympia. So let's see. By my second pro show, working with a new coach, the differences in my physique were just night and day. Ended up placing second at my second pro show. And then 2 weeks later, I did my third pro show, ended up winning that one and qualifying for the 2016 Olympia. At that point, that's when I think my name had started to get out there a little bit. At that time, though, the current men's physique Olympia was Jeremy Buendia. So I became the other Jeremy. As you say, people were like, holy shit, you know, look at this Jeremy, looks kind of crazy, looks very similar to the other Jeremy. And it started this whole Jeremy versus Jeremy thing going into the 2016 Olympia. So that did help provide a little momentum for myself, especially going into it. You know, I was extremely grateful just to be getting to the 2016 Olympia. Ended up getting in the first call outs, battling out with everybody, and then ended up placing third. Third at my first Olympia, I thought was pretty, I mean, it was a surreal experience. You know, I definitely cried. But yeah, I think that's, like I said, that's when everything kind of just took off for me. That's when things really changed and my life really changed, was after that Olympia.
Yeah, that's unbelievable, man. Now, this is something that I don't really talk about a whole lot on the podcast, but you did kind of bring it up. And if you don't really want to talk about it, that's completely fine. But you mentioned kind of going to the dark side, right? And the reason why I just want to kind of get your perspective is because there's a lot of younger listeners to this podcast. And I think if people are willing within the industry to discuss some of this within reason, it can be very beneficial. Because I think because of social media, because of YouTube, because of some idiots in the industry, there's a lot of misinformation. So are you okay if I ask you a question or two about going to the dark side, or would you prefer not to talk about that?
No, I'm an open book, man. Like I said, if you just saw my most recent post, I actually talk about that a little bit. So
Yeah,
definitely same page as you there.
Yeah, I saw your last post, and I just always want to be respectful to my guests and make sure we're keeping everything where we need to keep it. But the question that I have is, when you came to that point, Jeremy, where you're like, okay, if I want to progress in this sport, if I want to be an Olympian, I'm going to have to start taking some sort of steroids or some sort of drugs, some sort of performance enhancing drugs. How did you come to that conclusion, or how did you kind of shift that mindset of like, this is what I need to do, this is what I want to do, and this is what I'm going to do? And how did you kind of work through that for yourself personally?
I think, like I said, I was able to go pro without going there, but I was able to look at myself and look at the guys at the top. And, I realized there's just no way I could compete at 143 to 150 pounds with these guys naturally. You're looking at guys like Physique, Jeremy Buendia. I was looking up to guys like Johnny Sebastian. And, aside from genetics, obviously, if I knew a little bit more, I probably would have waited. So I thought, at 24, I thought I was at my genetic potential. I thought I was at my limits naturally. But again, I also knew that I did want to pursue things and take this journey a little bit more seriously. And at that point, I just kind of researched and did my homework on the pros and cons of it. Obviously, there's a lot more cons, but if you are safe, or as safe as you can be, I guess you could say, there's not too much to worry about. So, like I said, it just kind of, to me, it became a personal decision. Like, I do want to see what could happen if I take things to that level, and kind of, would I be competitive? And if not, I probably would have stopped. but I kind of just wanted to see.
So for that younger listener that's maybe at that crossroads right now, what is your personal words of wisdom, words of caution, words to them, just to say, hey, before you move in that direction, maybe think about this? Or just what would you say to that younger listener, again, that's at maybe that crossroads that you were at one point?
The biggest thing is, it is a lifetime decision. It's not one of those things where you just be like, all right, I did my cycle, that's it. It's very easy to get addicted to, just because, like I said, the progression and the change that you see in your physique, especially if you're pursuing competition. So you got to keep those things in mind. If I can go back and tell myself again, like I said, I would definitely work with a coach who would push me to kind of pursue, an off season naturally first. I can't say I ever did that. So, even though I thought I was kind of at my genetic limit, I definitely wasn't. There's just, you got to know that at the end of the day, the majority of people are telling you to get your blood work done, to get your checkups, but how many people are actually doing that? So you got to be very responsible with it, and a little does go a long way. So even to this day, that's one thing I've always prided myself in, is I don't use a lot, I don't abuse it, which is why, has my physique changed? Absolutely. But since 2016 to now, I've only gone up 3 pounds in stage weight. So do I look different? Absolutely. But I think I attribute most of that to my training, and yeah. So.
Perfect. I appreciate you just touch on that a little bit. I think that's it's important for somebody like in your position to be able to share that with the listeners. So before we kind of get more into competing, you just mentioned training. How has your training, Jeremy, over the years evolved? And what does your training kind of currently look like? I know that you, which I want to get into here in a little bit, you're transitioning from men's physique to classic. But talk about your training style, talk about how it's evolved over the years and what it kind of looks like current day.
Over the years, when I first started, competing and everything like that, I was in the gym 2.5, 3 hours a day. I just love being in there. And I would do everything that you could probably think of to target a specific muscle group. I definitely enjoyed it, but I definitely was probably overdoing it. And once I started working with a coach and in person, like when I moved out to California and started working with Ryan Benson, the training became definitely more controlled, but we were still, it was work. So it'd be like an hour of work, but you were pushing yourself. So it was always about moving as much weight for, that hypertrophy rep range, that 8 to 12 rep range. But when I left zero gravity and moved to Texas, my training turned more into, it was focused on form. So I went from long training sessions to heavy weight with high reps to more form workouts to now I could say I'm still moving weight, but everything to me is about the negatives and the contractions. So it's more about cell volumization, getting the pump and getting the blood flow into the muscle, and staying a little bit more, I want to say working more on longevity and in terms of my joints, things like that. So I do use a lot of machines. I don't do as much free weight movements. I used to love dumbbell presses, shoulder presses, all sorts of variations, dumbbell rows. I do a lot more machines now.
Makes a lot of sense. So, question, when you started out in men's physique, was leg training something that you did, or was it more really focused on the upper body?
So it was, I didn't skip legs, but I didn't put the same intensity into them as I would my upper body. And a lot of the reason for that was I honestly developed really bad habits while I was deployed when I first started working out. I tell a story to everybody that ever asks is one day while deployed, I worked out with my NCO or my boss at the time, and we decided to do legs together, and had a killer workout that night. Killer. The next day, my NCO couldn't walk. I could barely walk. However, that next night, we ended up getting attacked. So we had some incoming mortars, things of that sort. And my boss could not run to the bunkers. So we were kind of dragging him. Got to the point where we were almost at the bunker, but he just couldn't move anymore. So we dove for the cars. And we were just kind of hanging out there. We're like, why did you, kind of dive there? And he was like, I can't move my legs. So from that point on, he was like, no more leg days. You're not allowed to train legs. So that was kind of like instilled in me early on, like, all right, just train upper body, can't do legs anyway. So, my upper body was growing like crazy. I learned how to train legs, but like I said, it wasn't with the same intensity. And then even on preps, I would look at myself and I'd be like, all right, well, my legs aren't being judged. What workout, what needs to be improved up top? So I'd always go into my workouts with that mentality, especially the closer I get to shows. You'd be like, I'm tired of shit. Don't want to even be in the gym, much less do a leg day. Let me just do something that matters. So it was, I've been trying to do a lot of catch up, over the last couple of years. Found out that, the more serious I got with my leg training, the more my knees would hurt. Found out that it got to the point where I just couldn't really push my leg days. It was just kind of more of a maintenance thing because of how bad the tendonitis in my knees were. Found out that was caused by flat feet. So got some insoles. It fixed the issue. I wish I would have known about this years ago, but at least now I know what the issue is and I can kind of train my legs the way I want to now.
So just before we move on from the training, now that you're transitioning over to classic physique, what does that leg training look like? I mean, is that a pretty, I'm assuming, high priority? And then if so, are you training legs twice a week, 3 times a week, still just once a week? What does it look like now specifically for leg training, Jeremy?
So right now I have 2 leg days. One of them is more of a quad focused leg day with some hamstring movements. The other one is more of like a hamstring day with accessory touch up. So I'll be doing like deadlifts or RDLs, things of that sort. But yeah, so it's 2 leg days, 1 quad focus, 1 hamstring focus with no quad work though. So
very cool. So I want to go back to being an Olympian. You got 3rd place at your first Mr. Olympia, correct? 3rd place. So at that point, you kind of said things started blowing up. How did you personally handle that blow up, so to speak? Right. I'm sure the social media following increased. I'm sure the people reaching out to you increased. Sponsorships increased. Kind of like, that dream of a pro bodybuilder started to become a reality. How did you handle that? Was that something that you handled well and you just kind of continue to move forward? Were there some pitfalls? Just touch on that for a minute, if you don't mind.
It was a blessing and a curse. I guess you could say, you reach that point where, you're considered one of the best in the world at your division. And it's definitely amazing because you get a lot of support, but you get a lot of negative attention as well. Especially I feel like with me, I want to say more so than others, but I do have a very unique physique, where you see it, you either hate it or you love it. Some people love the way I'm built. Some people hate it. And even me, myself, I'm not necessarily a fan of my own physique. So, I work with what I have and I try to add on to it, but a lot of others will just see it and they're just like, oh dude, like, how are you placing so well? You look like crap. So it took me a while to adjust to that. Definitely wasn't easy. There'd be times where I remember the first time I dealt with any sort of negativity or mass negativity was the first time I had a picture go viral. And, first 500 or so comments were like positive, but like the next 500 to, 700 were just straight bashing me. I guess my picture had made it to the explore page. So you had a lot of people that didn't understand what I was doing or what I was competing in, just shitting on me. And that was a lot to get used to. And even to this day, when you get those negative comments from a lot of ignorant people, it does bother you. But I've learned to deal with it a lot better. Before I used to waste my time talking back to these people. Now, if somebody's bashing on me, I'll just pin their comment and let everybody else hate on them. So it was, it's a lot. It's a lot. Definitely isn't easy. But like I said, it did create a lot of opportunity, and it's up to you to kind of capitalize on that opportunity or take advantage of it. So, there's definitely some things I wish I would have done more of, but at the end of the day, still very grateful for the opportunities it presented.
So you kind of caught me off guard because you said you don't even necessarily, fully like your physique, right? I mean, that's kind of what you just said. So that really caught me off guard, to be truthful. What is it then about your physique that you specifically don't like? And then what has the general hate been towards your physique? I mean, you've been as high as 3rd at the Olympia. So what is it about your physique that you don't like? And what is the hate that people kind of throw at you, or at least in the past, because of your physique?
Things that I don't like about my physique, muscle insertions, things that I have no control over. I can't control where my chest muscles insert. I can't control where my abs insert. Those things. My calves, I have compartmental stress syndrome from the knees down. So that basically means the fascia is so tight around your muscle that there is no room for blood flow or for your muscle to expand. The only way to fix that is to get surgery, and they just make an incision down the top of your shins and they don't stitch it back up. That's how they allow for the room to expand. So those things I don't like about my physique. And like I said, those are things I can't really do anything about. So no matter how hard I train my calves, they ain't growing. No matter what I do with my chest, I'm not changing the insertion. Same with abs. And those are the things that I constantly get knocked for. Like I said, I can't really do anything about it. So just kind of got to roll with the punches.
Yeah, for sure. So let's, I want to talk about, so you've been to the Olympia as a men's physique competitor 4 times, correct?
Yep.
Okay. So at what point did you start to think about classic physique and then determine I'm going to move in that direction as opposed to continue to pursue being a men's physique athlete?
Oh, I think it was for me, the moment I realized that I could train my legs without knee pain. It wasn't that long ago. I realized that, those insoles did make a difference. And I was like, well, you know what, if I can challenge myself and push myself again, maybe I can make the classic thing happen. It's always been a division I've been fascinated with. I admire the division. However, it's going to take a lot of time. Have I made a lot of progress in my legs in the last probably half year to 8 months? I think I have, but I think I underestimated how hard it would really be. Especially, like I said, I'm not one to push a lot of the gear. So I'm relying strictly on my training and nutrition and taking the same stuff I've been taking for years. So there is a possibility that I will. So my plan is right now to cut at some point to see where my leg progress really is. Because, most competitors, they know that when you cut, your legs they shrink a lot. So I'm going to do a small cut to see where my leg progress really is. And if it's not exactly where I'd like it to be, I haven't maintained that muscle the way I thought I would, then I might hop in, do a couple men's physique shows, put the size back on. And, I just can't take 2 years away from the stage. I just don't want to do that. So we'll see. It's kind of just a wait and see kind of game right now.
And so next year, 2022, is that kind of going to be at some point earlier in the year, the determining factor if you're going to kind of continue to move in the classic physique direction, or you might step back on stage with men's physique kind of earlier next year? Is that what you're thinking, Jeremy?
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking at, especially seeing how I'm not going to lie. I've let a lot of what I'm hearing on social media kind of influence that decision as well. With how this Olympia went and hearing talked with a couple of the head judges, and, they said if I did this Olympia and I showed up how I usually look, I probably would have placed 3rd, possibly even 2nd. That kind of got the gears turning a little bit. Yeah, it's just kind of wait and see kind of thing. Like I said, I'm very happy with the progress I made. But I still do look at my physique and, being realistic with myself. I gotta know where I'm at. I can't step on the classic stage and just completely embarrass myself. I don't want to do that. I won't step on the classic stage until I know I'm ready. Makes
sense. And so with this decision, because I want to talk a little bit about business with you, if you don't mind, because I think that's an area within bodybuilding, within the fitness realm. We can have a lot of improvement in terms of, hey, not just focusing on your physique, not just being a quote unquote full-time bodybuilder, but realize like all of this is going to come to an end at some point, and you want to be set up financially for the future. You want to take advantage of those opportunities that you mentioned earlier, and be set for yourself, for your family, and again, for the times to come. So talk about some of those opportunities that you've been able to take advantage of, and kind of you transitioning possibly back into men's physique. Is that a business move as well? I mean, does that kind of tie into you maybe doing that at some point next year again, Jeremy?
Well, so it kind of is in a sort of sense, because let's be real, in today's world, relevance is a big thing. It's a real thing. If I'm being realistic with myself, if I take 2 years away from the stage, how's that going to affect my social media? But there's pros and cons, because like I said, it could affect my social media in a negative way, but also it could affect my decision that I announced earlier to do classics. People be like, oh, well, you said you're doing classic, but you're going back to men's physique. At the end of the day, you just got to be comfortable with the decisions you're making, and kind of why you're doing it. Like I said, I think 2 years away from the stage wouldn't help me in any sort of way. You know, granted, would I make progress in my legs? Yes, but what is a couple more months in the big scheme of things? And also, like I said, I'm not really trying to grow my upper body so much. You know, maybe a little bit of quality pounds there, but nothing too crazy. And like I said, my last stage weight was 153 pounds. So I still have room to add on to my frame and still fit the mold of men's physique. Just figure, you know, the way I'm looking at it is maybe come back to men's physique, be kind of like the freak of men's physique. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's just like I said, it's being real with myself, being realistic with my goals. Like I said, I'm not saying I'm not going to go and do classic. It's just if my legs aren't where they need to be to where I'm not embarrassing myself, then I will do a show in men's physique. You know, like I said, if I'm in shape, why not? Just see what they think. But yeah, and like I said, this is getting feedback from Steve Weinberger. So, you know, if he's saying it, then I'm going to kind of listen to what he's telling me to do.
Absolutely. So social media, Instagram specifically, how has that been a springboard for you in terms of business and, you know, setting yourself up financially? And to kind of follow up with that, how can people that are maybe getting into competing and starting to see that stage success turn, you know, social media, Instagram specifically, into profit?
Oh, well, I mean, obviously if you let's see, it depends. I mean, there's people who compete because they love competing, and there's some people who want to compete because they think it can help with social media. I started competing because I love competing. It just so happened that I ended up doing well enough to where it would pay. But yeah, you just kind of gotta, I don't know, man. Everybody's so different on social media. It's so hard to say what exactly works. You know, what worked for me was just kind of being me, staying true to myself, staying grounded. And then obviously presenting a unique and freaky physique on stage. For some people, being somebody else would work, being a completely different person. But yeah, it just comes down to relating to people, and showing them or providing them with something that they want to see. You know, social media was different a few years ago when I started really blowing up, I guess you could say, and contracts and the way you could make money was very different then. You know, even a couple of years ago, it's not the same way it used to be. You know, the big contracts definitely aren't around more as much. You know, now people are realizing like, hey, let's get 10 people with 10,000 followers versus let's pay one person a bigger contract. So it's definitely different. You just have to be smart about it. You have to really prepare, adapt and change with the times, which is something that I haven't really been the best at. So I'm even realizing I need to do more. I need to do things differently, especially if I want to continue making money through social media. Oof, sorry.
You're fine.
But yeah, it's hard to really plan for it. You have to kind of start a business early on. I think that's really the way you got to do it. Kind of figure out what you want to do and start working on it as early as possible. Don't wait. That's my biggest thing. Don't wait. Don't get comfortable. Don't get complacent. All things that I did. I got comfortable. I got complacent. And, I wish, like I said, I think I said it earlier, there were some opportunities I wish I would have capitalized more on. It's just doing those things when everything is on the trend uphill versus waiting for it to I don't know, just waiting. Waiting is not good.
No, that's valuable advice. And I'm kind of what I'm taking away from that, Jeremy, is like, it's literally like any other career or job. Like the more work you put into it, I mean, the more you're going to reap, right? I mean, it just all kind of makes sense. I think because of the early days of social media and, it was easier to gain a following and it was easier maybe to make money at some point. I think a lot of people kind of fell into that trap thinking now, like today, it's like, I can do that same thing. And you just can't, because you said it yourself, right? The game has completely changed. There's so many more players. So you've got to adjust. And I really value and appreciate what you just said. So, I want to start heading towards the finish line here. I want to be respectful of your time. We've been going for, I think, probably about 45 minutes to an hour. A few more things I want to touch on, and then we'll finish up here, Jeremy. Coaching in terms of, you finding the right coach for you. I've had tons of IFBB pros on here, tons of coaches. The athletes say time and time again, it's just important to find the right fit in terms of a coach. And then I always follow up. I'm like, okay, I get that, but for that person that's listening, what do the steps kind of look practically, right? So talk about finding the right coach for you and, what that kind of look like, the steps, if you don't mind.
I think when you're looking for a coach, obviously look at the coach's history. If you have the ability to do so, look at the way they interact with their clients. Are they doing it for money, or are they doing it because they genuinely enjoy helping people? Do you need a coach that is, do you need hands-on training, or do you need, are you available to do it online? Like that comes down to you. But yeah, it just comes down to like I said, doing your research. Really, at the end of the day, there's a lot of these coaches that are doing this for the money. Yeah, it's not saying that they're not producing results, but at the end of the day, over time, they might show you less and less attention, might be half-assing the work. I think when you have a coach who's doing it because they genuinely enjoy helping people, you're definitely going to see somebody who wants to see you progress, who's not thinking about, are you able to bring in clients? Are you able to place well? Because I've definitely fallen into those categories where I feel like it was more me that was bringing in clients for these coaches, and it wasn't really being reciprocated. So you kind of got to really pay attention to those things. Is that I realized that after watching coaches with how they interact with their athletes, what am I trying to say here? You have a lot of coaches that rely on top level names to draw in clients. What I started doing was looking at how these coaches look at and how they treat their lower level athletes. How are they bringing them up? And that was something that I really started paying attention to, and that I started appreciating more. It's like, I'm not paying attention to these coaches that have these high level names, and how are these high level guys doing? Because these high level guys are probably always going to be placing well. They have that work ethic already. They know what they're doing half the time. So I started looking at these coaches that, like I said, taking somebody and creating something out of them. That's kind of what I value more now. And I think that's something people should tend to pay more attention to. Not the high level guys, but the guys at the bottom.
Are you currently working with a coach, or are you just kind of solo right now?
I'm working with a coach now. I is Unchained Physiques. His name is Mike Rattini. Reason I was drawn to him was we developed a relationship over the last few years, but what really made me want to work with him was seeing how he was with his guys and how much he believed in them, how much effort he put into them. So definitely, like I said, that's what got the gears turning and started making me pay attention to how he's been bringing these guys up.
So I had George King Brown on just the other day, the podcast. I'm sure you know King George, right?
Yeah, same coach. We got the same coach now. So.
Oh, cool. And you guys are both with Dark Sport, I believe, too, correct?
Yep.
Yeah. So I asked him this question because he was actually the first men's physique athlete that I've had on the podcast. So I asked him this, and I'm gonna ask you the same question. And he said, "Hey, man," he's like, "Nobody's ever asked me this question, so maybe I'll get you on this too." But in your personal opinion, who is the best men's physique Mr. Olympia of all time?
Jeremy.
Jeremy?
Yep, Jeremy. I think he kind of just paved the way for the division. He made the division an exciting and fun division. Set the standard, at the end of the day, he kind of solely pioneered the division to what it is now. And in my opinion, obviously all the guys that were challenging him helped make him better. But while he was competing and while he was at his prime, I think he was still, in my opinion, one of the best to do it.
Excellent. What are some words, Jeremy, that you would maybe speak to your younger self? Some of the younger listeners, again, have a lot of younger listeners to this podcast specifically. What would you say to your younger self, or some of those younger listeners out there that are just getting into fitness? They're just getting into lifting weights, bodybuilding, competing. Are there any words that you would want to share with your younger self or some of the younger listeners on kind of whatever you want to talk about? It could be fitness, it could be life, whatever kind of pops up in your mind and what's on your heart.
I think the biggest thing is be patient with your results. Don't shy away from work. Develop that strong work ethic. This all takes time. Definitely does. Obviously, you could plan to be really ignorant and stupid with it and just blast a bunch of stuff. But at the end of the day, I think most people are seeing it now, what that can lead to. So definitely be patient with your results. Have a strong work ethic. Take things day by day. No reason to jump and get ahead of yourselves. Do your research. At the end of the day, everything comes down to you. It is all your choice, regardless of what you're doing. So understand and know what you're choosing. If a coach, for example, is telling you to do something, well, why is he telling you to do that? Look into it. That and don't wait to capitalize on opportunities. I think that's a huge one, and that's, I'm doing great for myself, but there's definitely, I sit and look at where I'm at, and I think about where I could have been if I just did more earlier, and think I'd be in a completely different place. So I think that's something that those who are just hoping to be a stay-at-home bodybuilder will kind of really take into heart, is just prepare for the future a little bit better. Like I said, figure out when you start this, what you're going to do afterwards. So that's kind of one of the last questions I want to ask you, Jeremy. How long do you see yourself competing, and what are you kind of building towards, or what do you want to expand to once the stage days are done, so to speak? Yeah, so competing could be anywhere from a couple more years to 10 more years. It just depends on how long my heart is in it and how much further I want to progress my body and do it, relatively as safe as possible. as far as where do I see myself down the road, it's definitely as a business owner. There's a few projects I'm working on now, and there's some ideas and things that I need to turn into a reality. That I think, they're $1 million ideas in my opinion. It's just a matter of doing it. So, but yeah, that's what I'm working on, just business now.
I love it, man. So I want to give you an opportunity to talk about your wife, correct? She's your wife?
Yep.
What's her first name?
Courtney.
Courtney. Talk about Courtney and just what she has meant to you in kind of this fitness experience, this bodybuilding experience. How does she tie into it? What does she mean to you? Again, what does she mean to the entire experience?
Everything. Geez. I wouldn't, I accomplished a lot on my own, but I mean, she changed the game for me, really. She's been an amazing support system, been, my partner, teammate, just everything. I probably wouldn't have made it too much further without her help, especially like getting ready for shows. She makes everything a million times easier. She's my brain when my brain can't function anymore. She's just, like I said, she's completely changed the game. As far as competing, as far as life, definitely couldn't and wouldn't want to imagine doing this without her. So I got very lucky, very lucky. So
beautiful, man. All right, last question, Jeremy. What has bodybuilding taught you about life?
Ooh. I think the biggest thing that has taught me is like I said, not to get complacent. It's very easy to do so. Very easy to see where your life's at and how everything just keeps, progressing. But I think if you get complacent, you're going to find yourself in a very difficult place where you might get to a point where you're just like, holy crap, I'm 40 now. Like, what am I going to do? So it is very easy to fall into that. I think not only bodybuilding, but just life in general, especially if you're into the social media thing. So yeah, don't get complacent. Just always strive and work for more.
Excellent, man. If you have any final thoughts or any final words or any sponsors, anything at this point in our conversation, Jeremy, that you want to talk about, feel free. And then also, where can people follow along? Where can people find you? And where can people connect with you on social media?
Yeah, no, I'd love to thank Axe and Sledge for, first of all, believing in me, believing in who I am as a person. And the stuff they have is amazing. So just a little plug. Dark Sport. Like I said, they were one of my first big sponsors. Just glad to be a part of them and back with that family. Let's see, what else did you say at the end of there?
Oh, just where people can connect with you on social media.
So Jeremy Potvin _ on IG, Jerry Potvin YouTube, and then Physique Pro Jeremy on Facebook. So
very cool. All right, Jeremy, I appreciate you taking some time and share your story with us. It's greatly appreciated.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me on, man. It was like I said, I love doing this. So
very cool. Listeners, those of you who are watching on YouTube, once again, I just want to say thank you to you. If it wasn't for you guys, the podcast wouldn't exist. Everything is growing. The Instagram is growing. The podcast is growing. The YouTube is growing. So I just want to say thank you to all of you. And 3 things I would ask of all you. First of all, if you haven't done so already, make sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Why is that important? Because I release all of these episodes first on YouTube, and then I release them on all the other podcast platforms. Sometimes I release the episodes the night before that I actually shoot everything out on Instagram. So also, if you are on YouTube right now, why don't you go into the comment section and leave just your favorite part of Jeremy's story or something that you took away from our conversation today. I love getting those comments, and it's always cool just to see that feedback from all of you listeners and supporters. And then finally, please take this episode specifically and share it on your Instagram stories. Make sure you tag Jeremy and tag Behind the Muscle so that we know you listened and you found value in this specific episode. And then finally, I will leave you all with this. Remember, behind the muscle, there's always a story. We'll catch you guys later.